Joining me in the studio, I'm delighted to say, former Prime Minister Liz Truss. Liz,
hello,
great to see you. How are you finding Washington?
Well, I love it. I love it. Everything that's going on in America at the moment. There's so much energy. There's so much positivity. Things are getting done. The economy is going great guns. You know, it's everything Britain isn't.
So Rachel Reeves was in town as well this week.
I managed to avoid her.
I was just going to ask you. Did she know you were here, do you think?
Well, I heard she was here when I was on the plane. I'd forgotten, to be honest. It was the IMF. I'm not a fan of the IMF, the World Bank, and all of these international bodies that are out of touch, frankly, with what's going on in the world. And it was no surprise that Rachel Reeves, who's one of their true believers, was here. And
when you say she's a true believer, you mean that she's very much within that, because you've talked about the deep state a lot. You've talked about how you were hounded out of office effectively by forces beyond your control, but
Correct.
She's part of that.
She is. I mean, in Britain, it was the Bank of England who were responsible for the market crisis in 2022. They subsequently admitted they were responsible, but there's been very little coverage in the press of that. And they were in cahoots with the IMF, with the World Bank, with Joe Biden, who was then in the White House. And Rachel Reeves is part of that way of thinking. Yeah. More taxes, more regulation, net zero to push up energy costs, mass migration. And it's an economic model that isn't working. And you can see it's not working in Britain. It's not working in France. It's not working in Germany. The only country that is moving ahead because they're fracking, it's about energy dominance, it's about cutting taxes, is America. And what's quite interesting, even here in the US, President Trump still faces a lot of the same economic establishment views, economists criticizing his tariff policies, they criticize his energy policies. They tried to stop the One Big Beautiful Bill, and they said that it would result in lower taxes, but actually it's working, and the American economy is doing well. So we all face this problem of these, essentially left-wing economists who have been in charge for the last 30 years.
Well, it is terrifying. You're not only an ex-Prime Minister, you're also a citizen of the UK, so you feel it as well, don't you, when the economy is going so badly. But front pages of all the papers tomorrow, Liz, Prince Andrew being forced to give up his royal titles. You, obviously, were the last Prime Minister under Queen Elizabeth.
That's correct, yes.
How would she feel today? She'd be appalled, wouldn't she?
I'm sure she would be. It's obviously a very, it's terrible, and it's a sad story about what has happened.
Yeah.
And I know that she was very fond of Prince Andrew. And
has the king done the right thing? Because I think he has. He's allowed.
And, we've seen it all. We've seen it all play out.
He's allowed his brother to give up the titles as opposed to have them taken off him, hasn't he? To give him some sort of sense of, I don't know, self-respect, pride, self-esteem. Still gets to live in the 30-bedroom house though in Windsor, so we shouldn't feel too sorry for him, should we? Should he be allowed to, do you think, still live like that?
Look, I think in the scheme of things, it's a matter for the king. Yeah. It's a matter for the king, and what's important is that, and you mentioned, late Queen Elizabeth, she did such a brilliant job of just creating that sense of continuity and stability, and boy do we need that now. Do we need that now, because the political scene is very, very fractious, as you know. I mean, people are so angry with what's going on. Starmer's at 15% in the poll. He's the most unpopular Prime Minister on record. He's probably more unpopular than King John was when the barons forced him to sign Magna Carta. This is a very, very fractious situation, and we do need a head of state who's, an area of stability.
As a Conservative, how frustrating is it for you to think that election was lost because the British public didn't necessarily want Keir Starmer and Labour, but they were just so tired of 15 years of Conservatives, and they felt that their lives weren't better when that election was held?
I think that's absolutely fair. The public were absolutely right. And this is what I tried to do in 2022, is escape from the doom loop of economic stagnation. And we've been there since the year 2000. Just remember, in the year 2000, the average Brit was roughly as rich as the average American. And you're here in America, Bev. People here are 50% better off now. The average Brit is poorer than the average person in Mississippi, which is the poorest US state. and we've got it wrong for 30 years. You know, taxes are too high, the government's too big, the welfare state's too big. You know, our energy prices are sky high. You know, we're closing down every serious industry in the country, from steel works to car factories. And you know, we're at the end game of that. And frankly, the Conservatives did not change that. And we didn't, you know, my fundamental critique after fighting all these battles for 10 years as a government minister is we didn't reverse the Tony Blair stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't reverse the Human Rights Act. We didn't reverse the Climate Change Act. We didn't reverse the Equality Act. We didn't reverse the Constitutional Reform Act that gave the judges all the power, and they're completely unaccountable as well now. And you know, the public were absolutely right to give us a massive kicking.
But why do you think that was? Why was there not enough change? What I notice here is Trump has this clear ideology, America first. It underpins all of his decisions. I can't imagine a Prime Minister in the UK. And to be fair, you were the closest that came to that. You had a really clear vision.
I tried to do that. I tried to turn Britain around. I knew it was going in the wrong direction. But my problem was that I didn't have the support of enough people in the Conservative Party. That's the bottom line, that when the going got tough, when the Bank of England pointed the finger at me, when it was actually their fault, rather than backing me, the Conservative MPs created trouble. And the reason is, you know, and it goes back to the Cameron era, the modernisers, you know, people like Michael Gove, Francis Maude, all these people, they wanted to be the heir to Blair.
Yeah.
They didn't actually want to change any of this stuff. Do you remember that they called Blair the master?
Yeah.
And the problem is those people still held a lot of power in the Conservative Party, and they stopped.
Is Blair still running the country?
Well, I think he is the last Prime Minister that was actually running Britain. And what he did is he handed over huge amounts of power to the Bank of England, to the bureaucrats, to the judges, to the human rights lawyers. And that's why nobody has actually been able to do anything like deport illegal immigrants or stop the net zero nonsense, because you know those pieces of legislation are still there, and fundamentally no one's been prepared to take these people on. And I discovered this. You know, I knew I was always fighting that battle when I was a minister, but when I got to number 10, I realised the way these people have power. They had connections in the mainstream media. They can basically make your life pretty much impossible.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Who does that make Kemi Badenoch? Who is Kemi Badenoch then? Is she aware of that? Is she prepared to take that on?
Well, I think those people are still in control in the Conservative Party. I've seen no evidence that they actually are saying we made a mistake by going along with Blairism. You know, it ruined the economy. It's ruining our society. We've got a huge problem with migration now and Islamism. You know, we were wrong on net zero. We should have got on with fracking. The Conservative Party still doesn't back fracking, for example, which I think is vital. If you look at one of the biggest differences between Britain and America, They got on with fracking. Their energy prices are a quarter of what they are in Britain. Can you imagine what the economic boom would be out of that?
Let me ask you about the news story that's in the papers today, this anti-Semitism, this football team, the Maccabi football team. Shabana Mahmood, we now know, Home Secretary, knew that those Israeli fans were going to be told they couldn't travel into this area of Birmingham to watch this match, and she didn't do anything about it. What should she have done? What could she have done? What would you have done in that situation?
So, first of all, we've got a big problem with the police. And the Chief Constable of West Midlands, previously, who was found to be not actually dealing with crime because he didn't want to face down the Islamists. That happened during the riots that took place back, I think it was in 2024.
Yeah.
So he is already, we know that he is not doing what the public want. We know that. And the problem is the way the police are structured at the moment is that a chief constable like that can't be hired and fired. Because what they say is we're operationally independent. So it's nothing to do with you, Mr. or Mrs. Government Minister. We make the decisions. And I don't think that's democratic accountability. So my view is the government needs to change the law. They need to make the police chiefs hire and fireable, and then they need to take responsibility. So it should be Shabana Mahmood saying, no, that is completely wrong. These fans are going to be allowed.
Yeah.
But in the current system, she can't actually do that. And that is why you get all these ludicrous statements from the Prime Minister. He doesn't actually have the levers because the levers were taken away.
About Islamophobia, we've got this definition, which I think is now not going to be taken. I don't know how familiar you are with this story, because it would open the door to blasphemy laws in the UK.
Well, thank God the government is finally taking steps against this ludicrous culture that's now developed in Britain, where any criticism of Islam can end up with you getting arrested. If you post anti-Islam things on social media, people have been visited at their homes by the police. And it is one of the many, it's so hard to list all the reasons the Labour government are unpopular. We can spend a whole show doing it. But I think this threat to free speech, people really feel it. They feel we're not a free country anymore. We can't say what we think. And I think they recognise that they're just digging their own graves with the Islamophobia definition, which went even further. And that's not to say there's still not huge problems with censorship, but I'm very pleased to see that at least is being withdrawn.
It's one of the biggest differences, I think, that I see, I'm sure you have as well, between America and the UK, is the issue of free speech.
We need the First Amendment.
We do need a First Amendment. Do you think we are getting to the point where it would be great to have a sort of constitution?
The issue is that I know that if we ended up having a constitution in Britain, it would be bastardised by all the wrong people. And what I think we need to do is go back to our ancient British liberties. The Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, 1689. We invented the free press in 1695. But the problem is, not just during the Blair years, but also during the Conservative government, and even some things under Thatcher, like the 1986 Police Act, too many of our freedoms have been taken away by constant legislation. So what we need to do is we need to repeal all of that.
Just very quickly,
it's the Public Order Act, sorry.
Just also on Andrew then, how serious is this? It's the main story on all the papers tomorrow. Is it problematic for the royal family, or is actually seeing the back of him probably good for the royal family?
I think that this issue has been much discussed over many years. I think its impact is reducing if it was ever high in the first place, frankly.
When you're here in America, do people ask you about the royal family all the time?
I do. On media interviews, I do tend to get asked, but it's either about Harry and Meghan or the late Queen. Those are the two favourite topics.
Are they in crisis, the royal family? Will this damage them?
No, they're not in crisis. And this is, as I say, this story has been going on for many years. I think the big moments were actually 5 to 10 years ago, and this is the end of the end of that.
I'm not even sure President Trump would be aware of what this would mean for Prince Andrew. He's well aware of Meghan Markle. We know that.
Yes,
and
we
Harry.
know that.
Do you think he'd be aware of this story?
Probably, and it's obviously linked to the Epstein case, and
Yeah.
that is a big issue here, although it's gone a bit quieter in recent weeks. But look at what's going on in the world. We've got the Ukrainians here in DC talking about peace. In that part of the world. We've just had the Middle East peace deal. We've got economic meltdowns happening in Britain and France. There are bigger things going on, and people here are just, the place is busy. Even though there's a government shutdown, there's lots going on. And one of the things about Trump that he recognised after what happened in Trump 1 is that he needed to act fast. So there's just such a sense of energy and momentum here that I doubt he'll be paying much attention to this story. I doubt it'll be occupying much of his
If you had to be a betting woman, how soon before he gets a ceasefire in the Ukraine situation would you say?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say because
within a month?
We've been here before, and it's very, Putin does not want to give up because his whole economy, his whole survival is based on continuing this war. That is a very difficult position, and I think the only way he will really be contained, which is what needs to happen, we don't want him threatening Europe again, is by action on the energy issue, because energy is what he's using to sustain his war. That's what he's doing.
Okay, Liz, we're out of time, but thank you so much
for
coming to see me. Great to see you.